So are we actually happening now? You people can hear me and all this kind of stuff on the Zoom. I'm looking. Oh, Vraja Vihari is here. Wow, look at that.
Yes, we can hear you, Maharaj.
Good. Why, I'm amazed. Sometimes the demigods in charge of internet are smiling on me, but usually not. So we are, as I understand it, on Canto 10, Chapter 2, Text 7. Is that correct? Where is Ananda Bihari? Yeah, everybody's shaking heads. So.
Yes, yesterday was 6.
Okay. 10 to 7, right. Gacha Devi Vrajam Bhadre Gopa Gobhir Alankrutam Rohini Vasudevasya Varyaste Nanda Gokule Anyascha Kangsha Sambhigya Vivareshu Vashantihi. So the translation reads, the Lord ordered Yogamaya, O my potency, who are worshipable for the entire world, and whose nature is to bestow good fortune upon all living entities, go to Vraja, where there live many cowherd men and their wives. In that very beautiful land, where many cows reside, Rohini, the wife of Vasudeva, is living at the home of Nanda Maharaj. Other wives of Vasudeva are also living there incognito because of fear of kamsa. Please go there. So I'll reread the translation. The Lord ordered Yogamaya, O my potency, who are worshipable for the entire world, and whose nature is to bestow good fortune upon all living entities. Go to Vraja, where there live many cowherd men and their wives. In that very beautiful land where many cows reside, Rohini, the wife of Vasudeva, is living at the home of Nanda Maharaj. Other wives of Vasudeva are also living there incognito because of fear of kamsa. Please go there. Okay, so there's a short purport. Nanda Gokul, the residence of King Nanda, was itself very beautiful. And when Yogamaya was ordered to go there and encourage the devotees with fearlessness, it became even more beautiful and safe. Because Yogamaya had the ability to create such an atmosphere, the Lord ordered her to go to Nanda Gokul. Gacha Deva Vrajam Bhadre Gopa Gobhir Alankritam Rohini Vasudevasya Varyaste Nanda Gokule Anyascha Kamsa Sambhigya Vivareshu Vashantihi. The Lord ordered Yogamaya, O my potency, who are worshipable for the entire world, and whose nature is to bestow good fortune upon all living entities, go to Vraj, where there live many cowherd men and their wives. In that very beautiful land where many cows reside, Rohini, the wife of Vasudeva, is living at the home of Nanda Maharaj. Other wives of Vasudeva are also living there incognito because of fear of kamsa. Please go there. This is a interesting verse. It's, of course, beginning the pastimes of Krishna. This is what we have in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The pastimes of Krishna are finally revealed after 9 cantos of hearing about the powers and the amazing qualities of the Supreme Lord. Now we hear directly about his pastimes. And we start right away by this lead up to Krishna's birth. So Krishna hasn't taken birth yet, but he is about to take birth. So we know that Devaki had 6 children previous to Krishna. Krishna was going to be the 8th child of Devaki. So there were 6, and these are known as the 6 Garbhas, sometimes the 6 Garbhasuras. So these were entities who were originally sons of Marichi. And because, some offense to Lord Brahma, they were cursed to be born in Asura families. And so later they became born in Devaki's womb, and they were killed by Kamsa, who had previously been their father in a previous life as Kalanemi. So that's a whole story in itself. I'm not going to unwind that story, but it's an interesting story. And then the 7th child was originally Anantadev or Balaram. But Krishna had asked Yogamaya to transfer Balaram from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini. So Balaram is being transferred from Devaki's womb to Rohini's womb. And then it's understood that the 7th child of Devaki is actually a miscarriage. So the change then is that now we had the Sadgarbhas, the 7th child, which was Balaram, and now Balaram has been transferred from Devaki's womb to Rohini's womb. So in one sense, Krishna and Balaram were considered brothers, and in the very real sense, they were immediate brothers. But because ultimately Balaram is born from Rohini's womb, they're kind of cousin brothers. But actually, they're real brothers, and beyond that, they are eternal brothers because that's their nature in the spiritual world. So, any rate, Kamsa had performed many heinous atrocities on the Bhoja Andaka and all these other families that were ruling members in India at that time. And so some of them were hiding in various places. Kamsa was, of course, a very vicious person. He imprisoned his own father and took over the control of the kingdom. And when he imprisoned his father, he also made alliances with other various demons. And once he was fairly well secure in his feeling that he would not have any problem in being able to maintain his rule against opposition, then he became openly inimical to all the ruling families that had previously been harmoniously working with his father. And so this meant that now Kamsa was revealing his true nature. And so this was a fearful time. But it says here that Yogamaya is now being instructed to not only move Balaram to the womb of Rohini, but then she herself will take birth as the daughter of Yashoda. So she will be the daughter of Yashoda, and Krishna will come out as the 8th child of Devaki, and later Vasudeva will swap the 2 children. So Yashoda will come to Devaki. Yashoda's girl child will come to Devaki, and the child that was originally born to Devaki, Krishna, will go to Yashoda. So in one sense, Krishna is actually Devaki's child, but he will be raised by Yashoda. And of course, Yashoda's child, who was a girl, will go to Mathura and become the child of Devaki. Of course, Kamsa attempts to kill her, but it's not, he's unable to do it because actually she manifests as Durga Devi, who is none other than Kamsa's own worshipable deity. So Kamsa also did worship, but he worshipped Durga Devi. And so there's this interplay between Yogamaya and Mahamaya. So Yogamaya is the direct pleasure potency of the Supreme Lord. And Yogamaya is kind of like the, in a theater group, something like the grip and the, staging, the lighting, the people that carry out the entire orchestration of what needs to get set up for the drama to be performed. So Yogamaya creates the atmosphere with which Krishna can then work and create a particular lila or pastime. And Mahamaya is rather, plays a similar role, but she is more thought of as illusion, because Mahamaya is the conscious energy that allows people to imagine some kind of, sugar plum, candy mountain in the material world that they can aspire for. And then they waste their lives, chasing after something in the material world that they imagine will in some way make them happy. And so this is what 99% of human beings are doing, is chasing after this big rock candy mountain. There was some song, I think, on Calf and Kangaroo many years ago, Big Rock Candy Mountain, I don't know who, all about, it was for children, and you hear about candy canes and sugar plums, and you hear about gumdrops and all these kind of sweets of various kinds. And so I think that for the most part in the material world, it is Mahamaya that creates these images of satisfaction that, like some kind of workhorse or ass, we chase, like the carrot that the washerman dangles in front of the donkey, So the donkey is burdened under a huge pile of clothes. And of course, unless you come from India, you don't know what I mean by the word huge. These little poor beasts of burden have a pile of clothes on them that's like almost 4 times larger than they are, and somehow or another they transport it, and then the washerman washes the clothes, and the motivation for the poor animal is that he's got a little carrot dangled out in front of his mouth, and he keeps thinking that the carrot is almost in my mouth. All I have to do is take 1 step forward. But of course, the washerman's sitting on the donkey, and the carrot is dangled from a stick held by the washerman. So every step the donkey takes forward, the carrot also moves 1 step forward, and the donkey never gets it. And the donkey never thinks, but why am I after this carrot? There's grass right here at the side, and there's grass everywhere. I don't need this carrot. And so in a similar way, Maya dangles this, carrot of material happiness in front of us. And as a result of dangling this carrot of happiness in front of us, we go forward year after year, and then when we die, lifetime after lifetime, chasing some sugar plum of the material world, never to be satisfied and never to recognize our stupidity in doing this. And this is Mahamaya. So Yogamaya creates the positive atmosphere within which Krishna can perform his pastimes. And Yogamaya creates this amazing billboard of material happiness that we follow, trying to enjoy ourselves in some way or another. They are related. So just as Krishna has various expansions, so Radharani has various expansions. So there's expansions of Krishna's male potencies. Krishna expands into Balaram. Balaram expands into Ananta. Ananta expands into the first Chaturvyuha. The first Chaturvyuha expands into Narayan. Narayan expands into the second Chaturvyuha. And then the second Chaturvyuha expands into Mahavishnu, and then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, then Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So we have these expansions. And similarly, we have Radharani, who expands into the queens of Dwarka, and then the gopis and the queens of Dwarka, and then finally the Lakshmi's goddesses of fortune. Then we get these Yogamaya and Mahamaya. So we have the feminine expansions going down that chain. And so these various personalities, they play a role in Krishna's pastimes. And it's interesting that I read the preface to this particular chapter. And in the preface of this particular chapter, Prabhupada points out that many people worship Durga Devi. So in India, we have, a great number of religions. Some of those religions are taken from the Vedas. We usually call those Astika or Asti religions, which means Asti is the Sanskrit word for it is so. And those religions which are not based on the Vedas are called Nasti religions. And I think that's probably where our word nasty comes from, And it also means atheist, so that's where you get Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and then all the other modern religions are there. But among Asti religions, we have probably Satyaraj writes a really nice book, about Hinduism, and he describes that you have probably the main branch of Hinduism is the Vaishnava tradition, which is where we come from. We are Vaishnavas, particularly we are Madhava Gaudiya Vaishnavas, so we are a particular trunk line from the Vedic tradition, the Asti tradition, on the side of the Vaishnava tradition. And Satyaraj writes that there's something, at the time of writing that book, which was some years ago, it's probably way more now, but he said 800 million Hindus in the world. And of those, 2/3 are approximately Vaishnavas. So that's a huge number, And then what are the rest? So this is where we talk about Shaivism and we talk about Shakta worship. So these are the other two main trunks of the Asti, or those that come from the Vedas, traditions. So we have the Shaivite tradition, which worships Lord Shiva as the central deity. And this tradition, the Shaivic tradition, is not to be confused with the Rudra Sampradaya. So we have 4 Sampradayas, and that's, of course, the Brahma Sampradaya, the Shri Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya, and the Kumara Sampradaya. So the Rudra Sampradaya is a Vaishnava Sampradaya coming down through Lord Shiva, which is not the same thing as Shaivism. Shaivism worships Shiva as the supreme being, whereas the Rudra Sampradaya understands that Vishnu or Krishna is the supreme being. And so it's interesting to understand that Shiva is the, as we call, demigod in charge of the mode of ignorance. So of the guna avatars, we have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma is the demigod who is in charge of the mode of passion. Vishnu is in charge of the mode of goodness, and Shiva is in charge of, you guessed it, the mode of passion. Mode of ignorance, mode of ignorance. So, being in charge of the mode of goodness is the most difficult, because it's hard to create things, but it's even harder to maintain things. And as far as destroying things is a piece of cake. Anyone can do it. You know, it's not something that requires any great skill. You know, it's easy to destroy things. Of course, Lord Shiva is not just a destroyer. He is someone who is actually able to bring the entire universe back into a particulate state again, to be able to disassemble the universe when there's a necessity to do that. And we understand that the Vedas, they actually teach that Krishna is the supreme, which is, you know, plain if you read Bhagavad Gita. Most Asti tradition, whether we're talking about Shaivism or we're talking about Shakta worship or certainly the Vaishnava tradition, see the Bhagavad Gita as central. And the Bhagavad Gita, there's no doubt that Krishna is the supreme being. You know, he says in the Chatur Slokas, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matasamam Pravartate Iti Madhvavajanti Ma Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So this is Krishna's own admission in Bhagavad Gita. And he says also that Mata Parataram Nanya, that there is nothing higher than me. And so, as we just mentioned, all the other expansions come from Krishna. And we learn in Brahma Samhita that Shiva is considered like yogurt and Krishna is considered like milk. You can always take milk and change it into yogurt, but you can never take yogurt and change it back into milk. So there is an expansion of Krishna known as Sadashiva. And Sadashiva is actually a direct expansion of Krishna and therefore the central deity. But the Shiva that is the manipulator of the mode of ignorance and in charge of destruction in the material world, that Shiva is tainted, it is said, by the mode of passion to a small extent, and therefore he is and is not at the same time the supreme personality of Godhead, and he's considered to be like yogurt to milk. So this is clear. It's explained in the Brahma Samhita. And we also learn that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that the other demigods cannot bring you, Arjuna. Only I can take you to the supreme abode. So the Vaishnava tradition understands this. However, the Shaivite tradition actually thinks of Shiva as the supreme. It's a question of point of view, but it's clear what the Vedas actually adjudicate on this particular topic. Now, besides Shaivism, we have Shakta worship, which is worship of Shiva's wife, Durga Devi. And this is where we get the concept of Mother Earth, you know, and so on and so forth. And it's interesting, Satyaraj mentions a lot of interesting things about Shakta worship. In India, it's quite common in some places to see Shakta worship. And oftentimes people who are, quote unquote, Vaishnavas may also worship Durga Devi. Even here in Queens, we have several temples that worship both Krishna and Durga Devi. And so you have a worship of Krishna and you have a worship of Durga Devi. And this is kind of, I think, people trying to have the best of all possible worlds. They want their material desires satisfied, but at the same time, they want to go to experience the spiritual world, you know. So Krishna demands singular attention, and he is not on the same platform. In fact, one of the offenses against the holy name, the second offense listed in the Padma Purana, is to consider the demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the Supreme Lord. So that's the way we're viewing it. And so Durga Devi, being Shiva's wife, is generally depicted as Gauri or Uma. There's lots of names. In fact, in this part of Bhagavatam, the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, we hear that she will have many names. And in India, there's scads of names for Shiva's wife, you know. And some of them, however, are quite unsettling. You know, like if you talk about Kali or you talk about, some of her more terrifying aspects. Usually, Durga Devi is depicted with, I think, 10 or 12 arms, I don't remember which, and she has a weapon in each arm. And these weapons are likened to various Vedic austerities that people perform to purify themselves. But she's usually depicted as defeating Mahishasura, who was a great demon, and you know she's killing him. But as Kali, she's quite bloodthirsty, and she wears a necklace of human heads around her neck. And this is the terrifying feature of material nature. So if you want to deal with material nature, on the one side of the coin, you have this motherly picture. On the other side, you have this horrifying picture. And the material world is both. It's quite plain that the material world has a kind of motherly aspect to it. We are born, we are cared for, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, the material world is not a nice place, as right now we are, as a whole world community, seeing, you know, whenever a war breaks out, that you see the terrifying feature of material energy. So the Vaishnavas are not disturbed by this. They understand this is all Krishna, and Krishna is creating this drama and these particular situations to purify us all. And we are simply getting the reactions of the pain that we caused to others in a previous life. And if we continue down the road of worshiping Krishna and trying to perform bhakti yoga, we won't have any difficulties. We may go through upheavals, we may experience some travail of various kinds, but ultimately we will be delivered from this world of terror and nurture. So we've talked now a little bit about Vaishnavism, we've talked about Shaivism a little bit, and we've talked about Shakta worship. There is a fourth, which is smaller of all these, and that is Advaita Vedanta, which is the idea that one is identical with the Supreme Lord, and that we will merge with the Supreme Lord. And although it is possible to do that for a length of time, it's not recommended. And one will not be able to stay there. Ye ne ravan daksha vimukta maninas tvayashta bhavada vishuddha buddhya ruya kritschena parampadam tata patantyada nadrata use madangraya. That we learn in Srimad Bhagavatam that those who follow that approach will fall down. This is the prayer of the personified Vedas, I believe, is where this verse comes from. That those who attempt to merge with the Supreme, they will ultimately fall down from their position, because we are persons after all. And we cannot be satisfied with depersonalizing. So what do persons do? Persons have relationships, and they have, they exchange emotions with other persons. And so being a non-person by merging into the Brahman is not satisfying to the soul. And eventually we need to come out of that situation. And that's why it says, Tvayashta Buddha Avashuddha Buddhaya, because their consciousness is not pure. Patantiyata nadrata use madangraya. They fall down from that position of imagined superiority because they do not embrace your lotus feet. Now in Brooklyn, we're on the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the 9th chapter, and there we're talking about Krishna's lotus feet and how big a role they play in the life of a devotee. And in fact, there's a whole, the Chaitanya Mangala is written about the importance of Krishna's lotus feet and why Krishna comes to the material world just to experience the sweetness of his own lotus feet as experienced by the devotees. And of course, that's the advent of Lord Chaitanya. So this is described in the Chaitanya Mangala. So I'm going to cap it here and even give a little bit more time than usual to questions and answers. So I've kind of gone over an overview of this particular chapter and where we are in the Srimad Bhagavatam in this story, and tried to, because Prabhupada himself ties it to the various religions of India. I tried to give a little bit of an overview that we have, in India of the Asti traditions, those that are derived from the Vedas. We have Vaishnavism, the main branch, and then we have Shaivism, which worships Lord Shiva as the supreme, Shakta worship, which worships Shiva's wife, Durga Devi, as the supreme, and Advaita Vedanta, which is focused on the impersonal. So, okay. Any questions in our studio audience here? Then we'll take questions from our friends in YouTube land or wherever we're being.
Can you read the verse again?
Yeah. Let me get there again. The Lord ordered Yogamaya, O my potency, who are worshipable for the entire world and whose nature is to bestow good fortune upon all living entities, go to Vraj, where there are many cowherd men and their wives. In that very beautiful land where many cows reside, Rohini is the wife of Vasudeva and is living at the home of Nanda Maharaj. Other wives of Vasudeva are also living there incognito because of fear of kamsa. Please go there. So Yogamaya is being instructed to not only take birth as the daughter of Yashoda, but she is also going to make an atmosphere of happiness and fearlessness. Both of those things are being described. Let's see here. Someone is asking, why am I after this carrot? Right. We are all after the carrot of material happiness. Because, in Western metaphors, in India we talk about the donkey going after the carrot, but in Western metaphors we think of the big apple. We are after the big apple. And of course, we're living in the Big Apple here, as it's called, New York City. So we think that somehow or another material happiness is happiness. That's the first mistake. We consider that material happiness is happiness. It's a fraud, but most people have no idea that there's something other than material happiness. Now, happiness is not a fraud, but material happiness is a fraud. We can be happy, but chasing after material things is not the way to be happy. We just find ourselves chasing after a mirage. But because we don't know any better, we're certain that material happiness must be out there somewhere. It's advertised from every billboard. All of our friends are doing it. Our parents did it. People that we work with are working hard to be able to get that happiness. So everywhere, our entire culture is saturated with people running after material happiness by working hard like asses. So people are working hard like asses. Go to any corporate office here, anywhere in Manhattan, and people are sitting in little cubicles working like asses. And they get a little paycheck out of that, and they use it to buy a condo or to, fulfill their various material desires. But we're never happy. And the worst part of it is that along with the material happiness that we're working so hard for, we get the negative results of our past bad karma. And that is never fun. And we wonder, I didn't ask for this. Why is this happening to me? I didn't ask for this. But we got it. We're being pummeled by some bizarre quirk of our past wrongdoing. And so therefore, in Krishna consciousness, we learn tate nu kampam shushamikshamanam bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vapurbir vididan namaste jive tayo mukti padisadhaya bhav. That anyone who patiently suffers the difficulties that come upon them due to the reactions of their past sinful life, all the while offering glorification of the Supreme Lord with body, mind, and words. Such a person is a suitable candidate for liberation because it is their rightful claim. So patiently suffering the blowback of our previous iniquities, all the while still offering glories to the Supreme Lord with body, mind, and words. Such a person who can do that is a suitable candidate for liberation. So we understand that whatever we're going through in our material life is nothing more than a drop down or a reduced version of what we actually should be going through. It's a reduced version of it. And it's only, we can only point the finger at ourselves. So that's what we are, actually experiencing. And if we do that, then we can patiently suffer these reactions. And we also know that it'll be over soon. And in the material world, whatever is happy today will be sad tomorrow. What's sad today will be happy tomorrow. I once read many years ago The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, and he said that intense happiness, like intense sorrow, are like thunderstorms. They cannot endure for very long. When it really rains heavy, it can only rain really heavily for a short period of time, and then it's over again, and we're back into the maybe not so extreme negatives, not so extreme positives. So that's why we endure the carrot, even when we know better, even when we've studied the Vedas, even when we've been devotees for many years, we're still chasing the carrot, and because we're addicts. But if we continue with Krishna consciousness, our addiction will eventually phase out. We will become purified of it. Any
Prabhu Maharaj.
You are doing a feedback loop.
Prabhu Maharaj.
Yeah, oh shit! Wow, and you're behind the wheel.
Hare Krishna. I feel
saw
like
you.
when you're in my vehicle with me, I feel like we're back on Sankirtan again.
Right. Where's the books in the back and the deck? Going to cook.
Exactly. I just had a question about the feature of material nature, which is covering us. Like are leading us on like the carrot. There's two Vedic Sanskrit terms. I think it's avaranatmika and prati something.
Pratipakshima. Prati. I can never get this out. Whenever I'm pratipakshmika or something like
Pratikakshmaka or something like that. Yeah.
What is it? Say it again. That's not it either. It's I get two syllables turned around every time. And
whatever.
When I'm not giving class, I can do it easily. But when suddenly I'm giving class, I always get those syllables backwards. Avaranatmika and pratipak. It's not pratipakshmika. It's something like.
It's close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Rock and roll. Okay.
So the one is the throwing cover potency and one is the covering potency. So which one is that as far as like deluding us into the thinking that this material world is a nice place?
The covering potency. We are here because, we think, gee, I'm here serving Krishna all this time in the spiritual world, and he's always at the center of things. And gee, why can't I be sometimes at the center of things? And Maya is therefore saying, yes, you can be. And so we wind up as Brahma in the material world, and we are at the center of things, But of course, it goes downhill from then, and we're born in Brooklyn or whatever it is. It's a whole downhill slope from, being Lord Brahma as creator of and manager of the entire universe. So that's how it works. We are thrown first, and then we're covered. And when we're covered, even if we're living a wretched life somewhere, we find some happiness, in a shot glass of whiskey or some kind of thing on the internet or, some other kind of pursuit. So we are.
The American way.
Yeah, it's the American way.
It's in our Declaration of Independence. Our whole country is based on the illusion of pursuing happiness.
Right.
But I was thinking that, the way to get out of it, Prahlad Maharaj says, the way to start to be happy, everyone's pursuing happiness, but the way to be happy is to just stop trying to be happy.
Yeah, right. And there's another verse, which I think is a very interesting verse. I forget where it was. I was quoting it to Krishna Kripa the other day, that there's a place in the Bhagavatam where it says that men come together, men and women come together in material life with the idea of increasing their happiness and diminishing their sufferings. But inevitably, the opposite effect occurs. Their happiness reduces and their miseries increase more and more. It's kind of the perverse version of what we think, because any life based on material happiness will eventually become more and more nasty as it goes on, as we experience the backwash of our mistakes and our infractions on the road to being materially happy. So we're doing things we shouldn't be doing to be materially happy. And eventually we've got to bear the brunt of that. So it's only people who are devotees who are not doing that, whose karma is lightening up toward the latter part of their lives instead of darkening down, How do you
Yeah, it just reminded me of something that I read, a similar thing from Emerson. He wrote an essay on karma called Compensation. And he said, since time immemorial, there's these people have been trying to separate the happiness from the distress, put all the happiness on one side of the table and all the distress on the other side of the table. But he said that forever, this has never been able to, to be, because there's always happiness and distress. And he said, you can't get an inside without an outside. You can't get a light without a dark, but you can't get,
right.
It's like the water comes together with, after, if you put your hand in the water and draw it across the water, it comes together on the other side. And so it's like, it's a world of duality unless you're surrendered to Krishna.
Right. Only Krishna you can get happiness without the distress part. Only in the spiritual world do you get it that way. And the other thing that occurs to me is that one quote by Oscar Wilde one time was, there are two great tragedies in the world. One of them is not getting what you desperately want in the world. And the other tragedy is getting what you desperately want in the world. And I think of the two, probably the most profoundly disturbing is getting what you desperately want in the world. Because with the donkey carrot thing, if we're chasing after something and we don't have the right karma for it, we never get it. But we're convinced that we're just about there and we're going to get it. And when we do it, it's going to be all roses. Everything's going to be wonderful. But when you actually do get the carrot and you realize that it's hollow, it's made of styrofoam, that's even more bewildering. I think a lot of people who achieve success, fame, wealth, who achieve political positions, people who wind up being, very attractive to others, these people who achieve these high forms of material happiness are genuinely bewildered when they realize it does not bring happiness, that they got famous, they got wealthy, they got whatever it was they were after. They have a prestigious title as being someone very intelligent, but still they're not happy. That's, I think, even more tragic.
George Harrison said that. He said, when I got to the peak of happiness, fame and fortune and everybody loved them, he said it was like going to the top of a ladder. He saw it with the other side. He said, there must be something more than this.
Right. Exactly. Any questions from the room here before I take a look to see whether we've got anything coming in over the chat line? Someone's asking about incarnation of Buddha. I've heard that one is an incarnation of Krishna and another is something else. Buddha is a Shaktivesha avatar, which is Shaktivesha avatar usually means, and in this case, Buddha is usually described this way, as being a separate living entity like you and I. We are not the Supreme Lord in a plenary way. We are a particle of the Supreme Lord. So these are known as Vibhinamsas technically. The Supreme Lord is, and all of his expansions are direct expansions, and they're full expansions of the Supreme. But vibhinamsas are tiny particles like you and I. And so a Shaktivesha avatar is someone who's a tiny particle, but still empowered to do something very large in the material world. So that's how Lord Buddha is characterized. What happens to our material needs when we worship Krishna? Well, Krishna always fulfills the needs of the devotees. He might not always fulfill all the desires of the devotees, but he always fulfills the needs of the devotees. And even if one desires material things, one should still worship Krishna. Krishna may allow some measure of that material desire to be fulfilled, or he may not. We don't know. But if he does, he will do it in such a way that you won't be further entangled. If you just try to enjoy material things on your own, then you will be entangled. Regarding our material needs, there are different statements. On one hand, Lakshmi is always on the side of Narayan, so the best way to keep in touch with the goddess of fortune is to become a devotee of Krishna and Narayan. Then we hear, yes, Yahamanugranami, the special favor of Krishna is taking material opposites away. It seems both are true in different situations. Yes, right. So that's why if you want material happiness, don't mess around with Krishna. It's dangerous, because Krishna will ultimately purify you of material happiness. If you really want material happiness, then go to the demigods. And, you'll become entangled and you won't be happy, but you'll have a chance at what you materially want. You can get what you want, but what you want won't make you happy. That's the problem. All right, so it looks like we're up at 8, is it? Yeah, 8:01 I've got on Adi's computer here. So thank you all very much for your kind attention. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.